guidelines on this Monday afternoon, December 18th, here on the Korean Peninsula. North Korea launches a short-range ballistic missile into the East Sea on Sunday night and a long-range ballistic missile also into the East Sea on Monday morning, following news of plans by Seoul and Washington to bolster their nuclear contingency strategies. And here on the local political front, the top office taps its current trade representative An Deok-geun to provocations in the form of ballistic missile launches on Sunday night and earlier on this Monday morning. Our North Korean affairs correspondent Kim Jung-sil reports.
A second missile launched by Pyongyang in the space of less than 12 hours. South Korean military officials have announced that North Korea fired what appears to be a long-range ballistic missile at 8:24 on Monday morning. The missile was launched at a high angle and flew about 1,000 kilometers before landing in the East Sea. The South Korean military said it's on high alert and has closely shared information with the U.S. and Japan. On Sunday night, Pyongyang fired a short-range ballistic missile into the East Sea. Commentators say North Korea's consecutive launches of a short-range and a long-range ballistic missile may be aimed at provoking South Korea and the U.S. The launches come as an apparent protest against the second Nuclear Consultative Group, or NCG, meeting held in Washington, D.C., where South Korea and the U.S. agreed to conduct training on nuclear operations from next summer to deter Pyongyang's nuclear and missile threats. North Korea's defense ministry released a statement right after Sunday's launch and called the NCG meeting a, quote, blatant declaration of nuclear confrontation. Sunday also marked the 12th anniversary of the death of Kim Jong-un's father, Kim Jong-il. Experts said Sunday's launch could also be aimed at showing off Pyongyang's defense capabilities to strengthen internal solidarity on the anniversary. Meanwhile, the U.S. State Department released a statement condemning Pyongyang's Sunday launch. The statement said the launch, just like any other ballistic missile launches this year, violates multiple UN Security Council resolutions and that North Korea is threatening regional stability. It also urged Pyongyang to engage in dialogue while adding that America's extended deterrence commitments to both South Korea and Japan are ironclad. Kim Jung-sil, Arirang News.
And speaking about that commitment, Seoul and Washington have agreed to bolster their nuclear contingency strategies and include nuclear operation scenarios in their joint defense drills next year. Our senior correspondent Oh Soo-young has details.
Seoul and Washington will launch joint nuclear defense drills for the first time next year, and along with Japan, take a trilateral response to North Korea's growing nuclear and missile threat to the Indo-Pacific region. That's according to Kim Tae-ho, Deputy Principal National Security Advisor, following the second South Korea-US Nuclear Consultative Group meeting in Washington held Friday. In a press conference following the meeting, Kim said next year's ROK-US joint exercises, such as Uji Freedom Shield in August, will involve training on nuclear operations based on various scenarios, aligning how the allies think, prepare, practice and execute nuclear operations together from the very beginning. This could involve practicing a US-led retaliation with nuclear weapons as a response to a nuclear strike by North Korea, marking an unprecedented first for the allies' theatre-level combined drills. According to Kim, guidelines on planning and operating a joint nuclear strategy will be complete by mid-2024, consolidating the sharing of sensitive nuclear data, nuclear consultation procedures during times of crisis, and a real-time leader-level communication channel. Such steps would, quote, determine how to deter and respond to North Korea's threats. The NCG was formed earlier this year under the Washington Declaration signed by Presidents Yoon Suk-yeol and Joe Biden, establishing what Seoul has declared as a nuclear-based alliance to ensure and better coordinate America's extended deterrence policy of protecting its allies from conventional or nuclear attack. According to the joint statement issued after the meeting, officials from both sides acknowledged the progress made since the first NCG session in July in talks regarding guidelines, information protocols, along with nuclear consultation procedures and nuclear and strategic planning. Officials also commended the holding of an immersive training course in October for South Korean personnel, deemed by observers as a significant move to scale up Seoul's capacity for effective coordination on extended nuclear deterrence. The US will provide another in-depth course next year. Kim, before the meeting, had warned of a possible intercontinental ballistic missile launch by Pyongyang this month. remarking that the North has rejected diplomacy, which the South, in contrast, has never given up as an option. Strengthening deterrence is the pertinent course of action for Seoul for the time being. He added that if North Korea's provocations continue, necessary measures between South Korea and the US and trilaterally with Japan may well be prepared. The third NCG meeting will be held in South Korea next summer. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
On the local political front, Seoul's Trade, Industry and Energy Ministry is poised to welcome a new head in the latest cabinet reshuffle ahead of next April's general election. Our top office correspondent Kim Do-yeon has more.
President Yoon Suk-yeol has nominated current Trade Minister An Deok-gun as the Minister for Trade, Industry and Energy. The announcement came on Sunday amid a cabinet reshuffle in recent weeks, with incumbent ministers and top secretaries leaving their posts to run for parliament next April. Prior to becoming Trade Minister, An was a professor at Graduate School of International Studies at Seoul National University. He was also involved in multiple South Korean trade negotiations.
The candidate is an expert in international trade, well versed in both theory and practice, and currently serves as the Minister for Trade. He is demonstrating outstanding capabilities in meticulously addressing a variety of trade issues.
An also acknowledged that he understands industry in South Korea well, while also acknowledging the current fast-changing global environment.
I'll leverage the global network I have established as the nation's top trade representative to communicate more closely with businesses. I'll do my utmost to ensure that our companies can lead innovation and grow dynamically in the global market.
The nomination comes just 3 months after incumbent Minister Bang Moon-gyu took up the post, as Bang will likely be running for parliament and general elections in April. Justice Minister Han Dong-un, a key man in the Yoon administration and a close confidant of the president, is also getting attention amid public calls for him to jump into politics as a deadline for a decision draws near. All public officials need to resign from their posts before January 11th under the Public Official Election Act if they would like to apply for candidacy for the general elections. In the meantime, there will be a major reshuffle undertaken by the top office at diplomatic and national security posts, with changes being made as soon as Monday. According to an official, some posts won't be changed, but candidates are being reviewed for certain posts. According to reports, this includes the Foreign Affairs Minister and National Security Advisor, as the current advisor Cho Tae-yong may be nominated to fill up the vacancy as leader of the National Intelligence Service. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
In other news, Israel shares the finding of a tunnel that reportedly facilitated the movement of Hamas militants and their vehicles for the October 7th assault as criticism mounts over the tragic loss of civilian lives amid its rampant counter-offensive. Our Lee Seung-jae has the latest.
The Israeli Defense Forces said Sunday that it had discovered a major tunnel shaft close to what was once a busy crossing from Gaza to Israel. The entry to the tunnel was also located a few hundred meters from the heavily fortified Erez crossing and a nearby Israeli military base. The military noted that the tunnel stretched more than 4 kilometers and connected with a sprawling tunnel network across Gaza. It also added that the tunnel was used to move vehicles, militants, and supplies in preparation for the October 7th attacks. Israel's chief military spokesperson Daniel Hagari told reporters that troops had discovered at least 2 other city-sized tunnels. Meanwhile, 2 Egyptian security sources said Sunday that both Israel and Hamas are open to holding renewed talks on a ceasefire and the release of hostages. However, disagreements remain over implementation. Hamas is demanding that it sets the list of hostages to be released without outside influence, while calling for Israeli forces to withdraw behind predetermined lines. While Israel agreed that Hamas can determine the hostages to be released, it's also demanding a timeline and to see the list before setting the time and duration of the ceasefire, while refusing any withdrawal. With U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin set to visit Israel on Monday, Washington is pressuring Israel to stop large-scale airstrikes that have caused civilian casualties and switch to low-intensity military operations that precisely target Hamas. According to CNN, citing a senior Pentagon official, Austin plans to press Israel on what goals it needs to reach to transition its military operations to the next stage and to what extent it has judged that those goals have been achieved. It is unclear whether Israel will accept the U.S. request to scale back its military operations. Meanwhile, Pope Francis on Sunday condemned the killing of 2 Palestinians who were sheltering in a Catholic church in Gaza. Calling the killings an act of terrorism, he said the attack by the Israel Defense Forces happened inside the Holy Family Parish complex, where there are no terrorists, but families, children, and people who are sick or disabled. The comments come as an IDF sniper shot and killed 2 Christian women inside the Holy Family Parish in Gaza, where Christian families have taken refuge since the start of the war. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Efforts are underway to ensure safe and successful hosting of the 2024 Winter Youth Olympics. Relevant government officials and members of the ruling People Power Party on Monday met and stressed the significance of thorough preparation, especially with regard to safety. That being said, some 250 medical personnel will be deployed at 13 locations, including the Athletes' Village and competition venues, to tackle all potential concerns such as chilly conditions and even bedbugs. The 2024 Winter Youth Olympics begins on January 19th and ends on February 1st in Korea's Gangwon province. This is the first time the event is being held in Asia. And in related news, our culture correspondent Song Yoo-jin met up with a few of our teenage athletes as they prepare for that global sporting event.
Chang Yu-bin and Lee So-won have just finished their final exams, but they have no time to spare. The 2 high school curlers are representing Korea at the upcoming Winter Youth Olympic Games Gangwon 2024.
I first got to know curling through the 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Olympics, and since then, it's really taken off thanks to Team Kim. We also hope we can spread curling to the world this time.
Around 1,900 athletes will take part in the 4th Winter Youth Olympic Games, which is being held in Asia for the first time. While it may not match the grand scale of the regular Olympics, the Youth Olympic Games is fueled by a broader vision. It's not just about the medals.
Gangwon 2024's official slogan is Grow Together. We hope participants can learn the Olympic values, collaborate and harmonise with each other. Beyond the races, we aim to provide education programmes and events so that they can explore other cultures.
For some, the Games marks their first step onto the international stage. But whether you're competing or not, everyone is part of something bigger.
Even though it's my first international competition, considering my experience and practice at the Pyeongchang Sliding Center, I'm confident I'll race well.
Being a forerunner for the Olympics, my dream stage is an honor in itself.
More than 340 Winter Youth Olympic Games athletes have become Olympians, winning over 60 medals. And Gangwon 2024 is set to add another chapter to this rich legacy, with competitions at venues used during the 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Olympics. Young athletes will have the chance to follow in the footsteps of their Olympic heroes.
When hosting the Olympics, the most significant investments tend to revolve around infrastructure, primarily the sports facilities, and then social infrastructure, such as accommodation facilities.
In 2018, it was about fostering connections through a shared passion. 6 years later, it's about the next generation growing together so they can shine forever. Song Yoo-jin, Arirang News.
A growing number of newly married couples here in Korea choosing their careers over children. Findings by Statistics Korea on this Monday show almost 30% of newlyweds who've been married for fewer than 5 years in 2022 opted for a double-income, no-kids lifestyle. Now, this is reportedly the largest percentage of such couples ever recorded. Back in 2015, close to 35% of newlyweds had one income and one child. Rooftop smart greenhouses are looking to facilitate urban farming and to enhance energy efficiency. Our Ian Jin explains.
On the rooftop of this 8-story office building in the city center of Seoul is a 150 square meter glass greenhouse. There are roughly 100 hydroponic vegetable spots where bell peppers and eggplants are grown. The smart greenhouse precisely controls temperature, humidity, and air composition, as well as emitting light that helps plants. Another big advantage of these smart greenhouses on buildings is that they also trap heat and contribute to saving energy in the wintertime, while blackout curtains for the plants in the summer also block the heat from sunlight.
Growing the plants in the city, in fact, improves photosynthesis, allowing the plants to grow better.
The technology for this rooftop smart greenhouse was jointly developed by researchers from various institutes, including the Korea Institute of Machinery and Materials, universities, and technological companies. And they are running the project's first demonstration to get its efficacy verified. Next year, the researchers are planning to install solar cells in the buildings that are being test run in smart greenhouses to decrease energy dependence. And in the next demonstration, the goal is to apply a technology that can circulate carbon dioxide produced from the building to the rooftop smart greenhouses and oxygen produced from the greenhouses into the building.
Energy used for heating and cooling can be reduced by 20%, and carbon dioxide, the main contributor to climate change, is expected to be reduced by 30%.
This latest technology is expected to prove efficient in buildings that produce a lot of heat, like data centers, or buildings that produce a lot of CO2, like gyms. Ian Jin, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, the outer walls of Seoul's Gyeongbokgung Palace were vandalized with spray paint on 2 separate occasions this past weekend. Now, Chungno Police Station received a report on Sunday night about the name of a singer and an album spray painted in red on the left wall near the palace's west gate. Just a day earlier, there had been a report about scribbles, including the names of illegal download sites on walls near the National Palace Museum of Korea. Authorities are currently tracking down suspects. Capital Seoul has officially turned on its lights for this season's festivities, and my colleague Choi Soo-young covers that event. Do take a look.
A lightning ceremony is brightening up the winter nights in downtown Seoul. Gwanghwamun Square is illuminated with lights for Christmas and New Year. The 15th Seoul Winter Festa opened on Friday, December 15th. Sculptures such as the Blue Dragon, representing the coming year, and the turtle ship of Korean Admiral Lee Sun-shin fill the square. The media art exhibition Seoul Light, which colored Dongdaemun Digital Plaza last fall, is being shown onto Gyeongbokgung Palace's walls. A Christmas market inspired by Europe has also been set up. With 83 booths, nearly twice as many as last year, you can enjoy traditional Korean craft items, products, and street food.
I think it's pretty similar. Usually they're, especially in northern Italy, they're a bit bigger maybe, and they sell local products and lots of artisanal things. But I guess like the vibe is the same with Christmas lights and wooden cabins.
That's right. Maybe in Italy there's more food oriented. Yeah, because the food is really big in Italy, big thing. So here, but I can see a lot of artisan things too. So it's kind of similar. Like it's good vibe, and Christmas vibe is really nice.
The nearby Cheonggyecheon stream also sparkles brightly with the theme of White Night in Seoul.
I came for a trip and suddenly found a beautiful place. I felt really happy, and the Christmas vibes make it even better. There are lots of things here that people seem to enjoy, and I like.
The highlight of the Seoul Winter Festa is the countdown event on the last day of the year. This year, simultaneous events will take place at Posinggak Pavilion, Gwanghwamun Square, and Dongdaemun Design Plaza for people from around the world to enjoy together. The festa will run until January 21st.
Seoul City plans to make Gwanghwamun Square a world-famous countdown spot like New York's Times Square or the Sydney Opera House. Choi Soo-young, Arirang News.
Let's take a look at the latest news in the world now. Russian President Vladimir Putin on Sunday warned of problems with neighboring Finland after it joined NATO in April. Putin added in Sunday's television interview that Moscow will create a new military district in northwest Russia around St. Petersburg. In the interview with state broadcaster Russia 1, Putin said that the West dragged Finland into NATO and that all disputes, including territorial ones, in the mid-20th century have long been solved, saying that there were no problems there, now there will be. Putin added that Moscow has no interest, either in geopolitical, economic or military terms, to fight with NATO countries. Finland is also due to sign a defense cooperation agreement with the United States on Monday, which involves giving the US military access to 15 Finnish military bases. In the Vatican City in Rome, Cardinal Angelo Becciu, a former advisor to Pope Francis, was sentenced to 5.5 years in jail for financial crimes at a Vatican criminal court on Saturday. Becciu is the most senior Catholic Church official to ever stand trial on such charges. The 75-year-old cardinal was on trial with 9 other defendants accused of crimes such as fraud, abuse of office and money laundering. All denied the charges, including Becciu, while only one of the accused was acquitted on all counts. The trial, exposing crimes in the highest ranks of the Vatican, lasted for 86 sessions over 2.5 years and was centered around the purchase of a building in London's Chelsea district. A severe storm in Argentina and Uruguay on Saturday has killed at least 16 people. Of those, 13 deaths were caused by a collapsed wall at Club Bahiense del Norte's basketball court in the city of Bahia Blanca in Buenos Aires province. And one person was killed by a falling tree in the town of Moreno. The thunderstorm reached wind speeds of up to 150 kilometers per hour, damaging infrastructure and causing some extremely serious injuries as well as the deaths. The storm also killed 2 people in Uruguay. FIFA announced on Sunday the details of changes to the Club World Cup. The United States will be hosting the 2025 edition of the expanded football competition in mid-June to mid-July, featuring 32 teams. This new format event will be held every 4 years thereafter. The current version of the FIFA Club World Cup, which is being hosted in Saudi Arabia this year, is an annual competition with 7 teams. From the next FIFA Club World Cup, 12 spots will be allocated to European teams, 6 to South America, 4 each for Africa, Asia and North America, while Oceania will have 1, with the final slot left for a club from the host country. Kim Seong, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. Extreme cold has swept across Korea. Things have turned very winter-like over the weekend. Temperatures plummet by 30 degrees Celsius or more in just a few days, almost shockingly swift. Most central regions are under cold wave alerts with strong winds, having a rough start to the new week. Feels like temperatures in the capital were below minus 16 degrees, and of course much colder in mountainous regions. And especially those traveling from the further south to the upper regions today will really need to bundle up and brace for this severe cold snap. Highs in Seoul go up to just minus 2 degrees. Southern provinces should have highs at least in positive territory, topping out at 4 degrees in Busan. The freezing cold snap continues through this weekend. Making matters worse, there's snow in the forecast in central regions tomorrow evening, which will cause slick roads overnight. We'll need to exercise caution out there. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
And those are the headlines at this hour here in Korea. Coming up right after this break is our panel session, so do stay with us.
시작부터 남다른 자신감으로 그립과 하나 되는 순간 플레이는 펼쳐진다. 승리의 정점을 위한 긴 여정에서 완벽한 스윙을 만드는 나만의 스타일. 리카타.
Geolight Lumion Company, Ltd specializes in manufacturing retro-reflective materials and heat transfer vinyl products. Geolight and Geoflex are represented as the brands of best quality reflective materials for HTV garment and heat transfer films for textile. Various types of products such as reflective materials, heat transfer films, hot vinyl are exported globally, not only to Asia but also to America, EU countries, Arabic and African countries.
Hello, I'm Gustav Slamečka, Czech ambassador. Arirang TV is doing its best as a media diplomacy channel representing Korea by delivering current affairs information and news in a balanced voice. Everyone I meet can get news about Korea through Arirang, and we are thankful. I hope Arirang TV will continue to take the lead in delivering Korea's news to the world, and I hope it will be a channel for the world and Korea to synthesize. Resonating with the world, Arirang.
Contour the world, simply contour. India, the United Kingdom, New Zealand. Woo!
I'm excited. Are you excited?
Of course.
Yeah.
Music, start.
Lotte takes a new leap beyond its boundaries. Our change will lead to better lives for all. New Lotte, the power of a better world. New today, better tomorrow. Lotte.
President Yoon Suk-yeol concluded his overseas diplomatic agenda for this year with a state visit to Amsterdam last week that saw the signing of a chip alliance between Korea and the Netherlands. So how are pundits responding to this latest bilateral semiconductor partnership? And how are the two countries looking to bolster their security cooperation? Also, how has the growing popularity of Korea's culture affected its diplomacy in Europe? Hope your work week is off to a good start. I'm Min San here with Monday's edition of Issues and Insiders. Today we address the advances made by the Yoon administration on the diplomatic front amid the President's state visit to the Netherlands last week. For more on this, I have Professor Pan Gil-chu at Korea University live on the line. Professor Pan, it's good to have you on.
Good afternoon. I'm delighted to be here.
I also have Professor Kim Young-jun at the Korea National Defense University, who is currently over in the US. Professor Kim, welcome back.
Thank you very much. Good night from here.
Right over. You're in Washington, D.C. right now. Professor Pan, we'll start with you. Quite a few pundits are highlighting the chip alliance signed by Korea and the Netherlands as a critical step forward in bilateral ties. Do you share their thoughts?
Well, from a viewpoint of both strategic and technical factors, a real alliance like US-1 is quite different from the chip alliance between South Korea and the Netherlands. If then, why do they want to use this terminology? They appear to expect to make their relationship more binding and more cohesive by defining their relationship as the chip alliance. In this vein, it could be a critical or significant step for their bilateral ties. Meanwhile, we need to think about the mechanism withdrawn from this terminology. Both policymakers and scholars alike are very prudent when dealing with the terminology of alliance. What is an alliance? A state under an alliance should be ready to help the other ally whenever it is at stake. With these insights in mind, under terminology of chip alliance, each South Korea and the Netherlands should help the other when it is challenged, at least regarding the area of semiconductors. In this vein, I would say this experiment or this new journey is quite noteworthy and somewhat promising. Second, the chip alliance shows how South Korea is eager to apply the concept of economic security to real policies on a government level. The Yoon administration stresses the importance of economic security. A clear example would be appointing a Secretary of Economic Security in the President's office. Meanwhile, semiconductors serve as a key area for a stable global chain. In this vein, by establishing bilateral semiconductor cooperation between the two, South Korea has taken multiple steps simply beyond multilateral platforms, such as Chip 4 architecture led by South Korea, the United States, Taiwan, and Japan, or the IPEF, Indo-Pacific Economic Framework. This multi-layered infrastructure could be synergetic to guarantee its economic security, I think.
Right, and also, Professor Pan, does Korea's chip cooperation with like-minded partners look to affect perhaps its ties with neighboring China, which itself faces quite a bit of related restrictions from the West?
I don't think so, because it is not only rational but also necessary for a state to step up its economic cooperation with others for its interests and prosperity, particularly under an unstable global supply chain. In more detail, I could think of 3 reasons why the chip alliance does not affect the bilateral relations between South Korea and China. First of all, China, as well as South Korea, pays tremendous attention to supply chain resilience. A bilateral chip alliance between South Korea and the Netherlands is designed for global chain resilience. Similar to this effort by South Korea, China has recently taken advantage of the Belt and Road Initiative, or the BRI, for its own supply chain resilience. So since both South Korea and China have adopted similar policies and remained coherent towards their passion for resilience, I will say that this bilateral diplomatic event between South Korea and the Netherlands should not affect the bilateral relations between South Korea and China, but rather pave the way for promoting economic cooperation between the two states. Second, South Korea's proposed diplomatic principle with China, as you're well aware, which is reciprocity, has never been changed, regardless of the chip alliance. I don't think South Korea's new diplomatic policy based upon GPS, global pivotal state, is simply static. To be honest, GPS is dynamic and evolving. Since GPS diplomacy has accomplished a goal of step one, which is alliance diplomacy and security diplomacy, by strengthening the ROK-US alliance and establishing the new ROK-US-Japan security architecture, I do believe that as of right now, GPS diplomacy is evolving toward step two based on the principle of inclusive diplomacy. What does that mean? I would say that inclusive diplomacy is more oriented to make South Korea step up its effort to engage with non-like-minded countries such as China, simply beyond the cooperation or solidarity with like-minded countries. The ROK, Japan-China Foreign Ministers meeting that happened last year, in about 4 years, shows that this inclusive diplomacy is working well. So all in all, I don't believe that the chip alliance affects the ROK-China relations.
Right, and aside from chip collaboration, Professor Kim, defense officials from Korea and the Netherlands have agreed to advance security cooperation. What more can you tell us about these initiatives and their importance?
Yes, two countries has a lot of things to do for collaboration. During the talks, the two sides agreed to begin working level talks at the early date for South Korea plan to participation as an observer in the missile defense exercise in 2025, jointly led by Dutch and German troops. And the two sides also adopted a joint statement on series of the bilateral cooperation effort, including Seoul's participation in the joint project Optic Windmill, the 2025 exercise as observer, at the same time to expand defense cooperation, including the potential bilateral arms industry cooperation, AI, and other defense technologies. So the two sides set up also a joint committee on the defense logistics as a MOU on defense logistics cooperation. So all these types of the defense cooperation is beyond chips for also they contribute the role of the global people state of South Korea, also European country and Dutch and the AP4 as a member of South Korea's collaboration is a natural step for the global security and stability against the unlike-minded countries like China, Russia, North Korea cooperation.
And staying with security, Professor Kim, there is also talk about the implementation of the trilateral missile warning system to be shared by Seoul, Tokyo, and Washington within this year. How does this particular system look to improve the region's response to North Korea's provocations, which also took place earlier on this Monday morning and late last night?
Yes, the Vice National Security Advisor Kim Tae-yeol visit here in Washington, D.C. has a great announcement for the sharing information between the trilateral security relation between the U.S. and Japan and the ROK. We already had a good bilateral cooperation with Japan, also with the U.S. Respectively. But this type of a trilateral security partnership will be a much stronger system against any threat, especially nuclear missile threat from North Korea. So North Korean nuclear missile program has a long-time threat to this country and this region, and recent missile tests also a high threat to stability and security of the region. So this type of the trilateral security partnership is just first step and not the end. So it will be much more stronger deterrence and defense capability against any types of North Korean potential threat, and we will develop this type of trilateral security partnership for the future.
Right. And staying with broader security, Professor Pan, outgoing Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte has already made public his hopes to take over the reins of NATO once Jens Stoltenberg's term ends next October. What are your prospects, Professor Pan, regarding South Korea's partnership with NATO under Rutte's potential leadership?
Well, if Prime Minister Rutte replaces Stoltenberg's duties in NATO, it is not bad at all for South Korea's continuous partnership with NATO. Well, when a consolidated partnership between South Korea and the Netherlands is taken into consideration, thanks to this recent summit, its duty is expected to the South Korea-NATO partnership even more strategic and binding. As you're well aware, the UN administration has transformed this partnership with NATO from a tactical level to a strategy level, and from a working level to a national leader level. Since 2022, President Yoon has participated in the NATO summit 2 years in a row, which is recorded in history for the first time as a ROC president. In particular, at the 2023 NATO summit, South Korea and NATO adopted ITPP, Individually Tailored Partnership Program, where 11 sectors for cooperation are specified. Under his leadership, this ITPP would not only be carried out without any glitches, but also be even more evolving. Moreover, since Prime Minister Rutte seems to be energetic in more cooperation with leading countries in the Indo-Pacific, such as South Korea, the relationship between AP4, Asian Pacific 4, and NATO is expected to improve as well. South Korea has recently been leading the AP4 platform, which includes Japan, Australia, and New Zealand. So at the end of the day, a more consolidated relationship between AP4 and NATO is most likely to continue to the emergence of a real functioning unilateral platform for preserving a liberal international order.
Right. And Professor Kim, speaking about NATO, I believe it was just last week when Defense Minister Shin Won-sik played host to delegates representing 8 member states of NATO here in capital Seoul. Again, what, Professor Kim, was discussed, and do you believe multilateral defense interactions have been more frequent in recent times?
Yes, I believe this type of multilateral defense cooperation will be strengthened. And the ROC defense minister, as you know, met the representative of 8 member states of NATO to expand cooperation in security and defense industry. They add the US, the UK, Italy, Denmark, the Dutch, Czech, Romania, and Poland. And their 3-day visit is very important. And NATO and AP4 countries, including the ROC, Japan, Australia, and New Zealand, is a very important key element for global security against any danger of North Korea and other country partnership. So to side security cooperation, including the defense industry cooperation, which is very good for the South Korea as a global people state role, and to start collaboration for 11 areas, from the anti-terrorism to the non-proliferation, also emerging technology and cyber defense as well. So, like attended NATO annual exercise already, as called the Cyber Coalition 2023 in Estonia, and this type of multiple the defense cooperation will be strengthened.
Right. Professor Ban, along with sales diplomacy and, of course, security diplomacy, cultural diplomacy took center stage during President Yoon Suk-yeol's state visit to the Netherlands. In fact, Dutch King Willem-Alexander pointed out, and I quote, during his welcoming address that is, the Republic of Korea is everywhere. There's K-pop on radio, there is K-movies in the cinema, K-drama on Netflix, and K-food in supermarkets. Now, President Yoon, in response, talked about the role that football coach Gus Hiddink played in Team Korea's performance back in the 2002 World Cup. All this being said, Professor Pan, what has been the impact of K-culture on K-diplomacy, if I may?
That is a very, very inspiring question. In a sense, it is insightful because it is happening indeed right now. Well, on the one hand, South Korea is defined as a leading middle power or a developed country, both economically and militarily. On the other hand, culturally, South Korea is often regarded as a superpower thanks to K-culture. Taken together, I would say that South Korea is a developed, strong country in the world. Meanwhile, we need to take a moment at who made South Korea rise to the status of a superpower culturally in the world. The Korean public and civilian groups, not the government, made it happen. Now it is right about time for the government to contribute to K-power as well. Yoon administration has expanded its diplomatic horizon to the world while staying away from the Korean Peninsula isolated mentality. So as of right now, many countries around the world are eager to be more cooperative diplomatically with South Korea. In this sense, the first chapter of K-diplomacy has already been written. Moreover, as you mentioned earlier, K-culture contributed to making the rise of K-diplomacy feasible in the sense that it makes South Korea attractive as a whole, which includes South Korea's policies. In an effort to make K-diplomacy more visible, how to fuse K-culture with K-diplomacy needs to be designed comprehensively. In a nutshell, the fused effort of the government and civilians is required to make K-power continue to grow.
Right, and staying with government efforts, Professor Kim, how do Korea's efforts to expand its arms exports look to affect its ability to build security bridges, perhaps with more countries, amid, of course, North Korea's hostile weapons ambitions?
Yes, this is a very important security bridge between the defense industry and also a partnership against the North Korean hostile ambition. Recently, K-defense industry is one of the rising areas like K-power and K-culture in particular. European countries, due to Russian invasion of Ukraine, really interesting in the K-defense industry. This arms export will increase security cooperation naturally between the European country and South Korea, and this will increase the allies and partnership against any nuclear missile threat from North Korea. As a global pivot state, the ROC will play a significant role with their defense industry and security beyond the Korean Peninsula. This is very important for the role of the global pivot state as South Korea.
Right, and all that being said, Professor Pan, speaking as a scholar in the field of international relations, how would you score the Yoon administration's diplomatic endeavors thus far?
To be honest with you, when it comes to South Korea's diplomacy and its roles in an international arena, 2023 served as a year to show how different and innovative South Korea can be. To begin with, in terms of the alliance, the ROC-US alliance remains the strongest in 2023 when the alliance is in its 70th anniversary of its birth. Moreover, Korea-tailored extended deterrence began to work in 2023 through the NCG Nuclear Consultative Group. Second, the new multilateral platform was initiated in Northeast Asia thanks to South Korea's active roles. The ROC US-Japan security architecture has been formalized thanks to the successful trilateral summit on Camp David this year. This architecture was driven by, first, North Korea's growing nuclear provocations, and second, the rise of transitional international order defined as the new Cold War. So this trilateral architecture is expected to help tackle not only North Korea's nuclear program, but also deal with global challenges. Since these three countries are scheduled to simultaneously act as members of the UN Security Council in 2024, this trilateral platform is expected to be at the forefront and viable, particularly next year. Third, when it comes to South Korea's diplomatic expansion, 2023 is recorded in history in the sense that it is the first year that South Korea executed its global vision based on GPS and its global level of national strategy based on its Indo-Pacific strategy. Under this dynamic posture in 2023, South Korea significantly expanded diplomatic horizon and scope to the global stage simply beyond the Korean Peninsula or Northeast Asia. That being said, South Korea faced weaknesses and hurdles as well in 2023. Despite the tremendous diplomatic efforts, South Korea failed to win the vote for World Expo. So the government needs to sincerely examine the lessons learned from this failure while checking this diplomatic strategy in detail. This intermediate or checking process will contribute to making its strategies and policies even better in 2024.
Right, and staying with its strategist, Professor Kim, speaking as a scholar in the field of national security, how would you score the unit administration's related efforts this year?
Yes, the answer to the question is more time. And the Yoon Suk-yeol administration need to take final tests. Because Yoon Suk administration has been only more than 1.5 years. So, but clearly, as a global pivot state, the ROC position has been increased clearly and contribute to global security and peace beyond the Korean Peninsula. Strong ROC-US alliance and trilateral security partnership, and also strengthening a role of the United Nations Command as well as partnership with the NATO country are all great contribution for security and stability of the Korean Peninsula. Also, as a global pivot state for the global peace and stability. So you need to take the final exam, but so far it's pretty good the scoring from me.
All right, so thus far we are on the right track then. All right, Professor Kim, as always, thank you very much for your insights. And Professor Pan, thank you very much for your time and your thoughts.
Thanks for having me.
Right, well, that ends this edition of Issues and Insiders. Thank you for watching, and be sure to join us again same time tomorrow.
Korea. Some people call it the country of Taekwondo.
People are more interested in Korean culture and other aspects of it, and one of those things is Taekwondo.
Surtout, ne commencez jamais le taekwondo, parce que si jamais un jour vous commencez, vous ne pourrez jamais vous arrêter d'en faire.
아, 정말 이렇게 제 인생을 좌우할지는 정말 몰랐어요. 왜냐하면 태권도의 나라, 한국에서 태권도를 하고 싶어서 한국에 처음 왔는데 지금은 13년째 살고 있습니다. 태권도 이런 무술입니다.
저는 사실 한 달만 하고 포기할 줄 알았어요. 근데